Hello everyone, this is Chris Jamel at Exiton Interactive, and in this video we are going to focus on actually making the routing changes occur through our routing service. So for example, if you look at the About page, About View code, we're saying that if we click a button, we're going to cause our route to change to the Home page. And similarly, on the Home page, we have a button that says that we want to go to the About page. Important part of this is that in addition to having the routing occur through our components, we're actually going to have animation as well. So for just getting everything up and running, we'll use the fade animation. So if I click the button on the Home page, we'll fade out, fade back into the About page. And if I click the button, we'll fade out and fade back in and go back to the Home page. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started here. So the first thing that we're looking at here is the code for the splash screen, which is the thing that we created when we first started this series here. So if you remember back to then, what we're doing or had to deal with was being notified being notified about the stages of the animation. In particular, we really did not care what the particular stage was. We really cared was is the animation over? Is it completed? So that should have, popped a light bulb in my head and said, hey, maybe we just make it easier to know that it's completed. And since I'm coming back around and doing more animation, that's exactly what we're going to do now. So the first thing we're actually going to do is in our animations folder, we have the types.ts file. So we're going to add a stage to it called complete and complete. Because I've already been doing it a little bit, so now it thinks there's another one there called complete. Why? It's not even in the reload. Good. Get rid of that. So now we have the enum there. So let's go to our animatable item here. So in our definition for our props, we have this function that we can have allowed to be passed in called update. So we're going to have another one called complete. So it's also a function, and let's update the props type definition that we have here. So props has update, but now it also has complete, which is a function that takes 0 parameters and gives nothing in return. So we want to make this thing work, and all we have to do is come down to our animation end. Last thing that we're doing is dealing with the active or removing of the active class. So while we're in here, what we'll also do then is just $props.complete and this $props.update, and we'll say that we are now complete in case someone's listening to all of the stages. Save that. Go back to our friend the splash screen. If we update our template, we'll just call the function that we're going to call is animation complete, and the binding was to the complete one. Then in order there. And now that we're not going to care about the stages, we'll remove that from the import. We called this animation complete. Don't care about the stages any longer, and all we need to do is to then say animation is over, just because I'm that kind of way. Put it in alphabetical order and save it. Alright, so that takes care of that little sidetrack. Deal with that later. Alright, so now we'll go back to routing, and in our routing folder, back to our routing service. In order for us to be able to route somewhere, we're going to need to know what that path is, where we're going. And our routing service has a listing of all of our entries here. So for the moment, let's create a little private helper method here. So private entry by name. So you give me a string name and I'll give you the entry. So const route this dot values dot find which one name is equal to the name that you passed in. All right, so find could give us undefined if it's not there. So let's deal with that. So if type of route is equal to undefined, will give us a little message, throw new error, and a route with the name that you gave me has not been defined. So now we can just return the route. Okay, so now we can know, how about a current one that we're at? So public get current. To get the current only requires this return this dot entry by name. We need the name, so we have access to our router dot current route dot name. Now, as defined within the configuration for the routes, the name of the route is not required. It can be a string or undefined. We have in our configuration for our route entries decided that you must specify a name, so we'll just cast that to string. Well, we're in a finding mood. Let's create a public method here. So public find. If you give me one of the enums, I will then give you the entry const route. Yeah, let's just call it entry equals this dot routes dot get route. We'll say if type of, and we need entry. So if the entry is equal to undefined, do the same sort of deal. Throw new error. A route for, let's put some parentheses here, make it look good, route, just in case it hasn't actually been defined, otherwise we can get a name of it, and we do that by just saying route, and then we'll just say has not been defined. Perfect. Return entry. Save that. Now we will go to our router outlet. And if you remember from the last video, all we have is the router view. So now we're going to wrap that router view, and we're going to wrap it in our animatable item. And now I'm going to call that the router view. Should have just copied and pasted them, I guess. Do some binding. Just move that over. Get rid of our class, and in here we'll now bind v-bind, and we want complete, so we'll know when the animation is completed. Animation complete, and we also are going to have to be able to communicate with the animatable item. Again, that's through a subject. Animation subject. Oops. Nope. Fix that. Perfect. So our subject is of course coming from RxJS subject, and we now need a few things. I don't feel like copying them or typing them. So from our animations, we're going to do animatable item, types, and options. We're also going to need the route entry from routing. Okay, so let's specify that we're using a component here, specifically the animatable item. All right, so let's give us a subject to work with. So private read-only animation subject of type I animate options. And we're going to make a couple property, or I guess data fields, whatever we want to call them. Private is animating out false. So in our particular case, so in the splash screen's case, all we had to do was animate out, then we didn't care. In this case, we're going to animate out, change the route, animate in. So we used this animating out flag to know where we are. And we have to know where we're going, which is a 2 entry, which is of type router or route entry. So we're being notified of route changes by subscribing to the navigate observable. Excuse me. Right now we're just console logging that. But what we're going to do now is create a new method here, and that one we just call this.animate. We'll fix that here in a second. While we're at it though, animation subject.complete when we destroy the router outlet. And now we are set to make our animate method. So private animate routes. This dot is animating out is true. This dot to entry is equal to this dot routing service dot find route where we're going. And we'll say const from is equal to this dot routing service dot current. Not sure why I need to make that. Guess we're jumping the gun here. We're actually not going to need that from. Ignore that. Let's just get rid of it for now. We'll need it later. This dot animation subject dot next. And for now, the animation that we're going to play is just fade out. So we'll just fade out, and before we do a change, before we change the route. Now we need, of course, that we're going to be notified on completion of the animation in an animation complete method. So private animation complete. So what we'll do is say this. If this dot is animating out, if that's false, we'll just return. So I said what will happen is we're animating out, fading out, and then we'll do an animation fading in. So once the fading in is occurring, I don't really care anymore. So the first time through though, is animating out will be true. So then we'll just say is animating out is false. Since we're animated out now, we'll just do, I guess we could just do this dot animating subject dot, did I leave it? No, didn't give access to it. But we have access to it through $router dot push, and what we're pushing is this dot to entry dot path. And then we need to animate back in. So animation subject dot next of type animation types dot fade in. All right, so I think that's good for the router outlet. To be able to test this better, let's go to our views here, starting with the about. So what we did in the last one was to say on mounted, it's going to navigate. We're going to change this to click, because while we're at it, we're going to update our template. Change it to pug first of all, and then we're going to add a button which has the click handler there. Save that. And for symmetry, let's go over to our home view, and I don't like this image that keeps loading every time. It's kind of distracting. We're going to change the pug. Give us a button, hello world. We do have to update this a little bit. Inject. Watch, we'll have to remember to delete some of this stuff later on. We're good to go with that. We'll also need to know some stuff from routing, right? So we have the routes, enum, and routing service. Let us, first of all, change these and inject in. Just copy and paste. It's not usually important. So injecting in the routing service. So when you click the button on home, it's going to navigate to about. So let's save that and just refresh everything up here. So now we have our button here. If we click on our button, we go to the about page. And if we click on the button, we go to home. So the routing is working. And of course, if we note, once we click, we fade out and then we fade back in. Fade out, fade in. It's very fast. It's not the animation that we're going to use in the first place anyway. We're going to do sort of, sliding in and out in the X direction. But I think for now, it takes care of it for this video. So like I said, we've actually got the infrastructure now to be able to cause the routing to occur wherever we are within any component. It'll change the route and we'll get the animations that we want to occur. And like I said, in the next video, we'll deal with actually creating the sort of translate animations that we're going to use. Like I said, that'll wait till next time. Until then, I will talk to you later. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. I know that your time is valuable. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel and click the thumbs up button, as well as share the video with your friends. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below. And once again, thank you, and I will talk to you in the next video.